So then, Wolves progress into the semi-finals of the FA Cup at the expense of my team, Manchester United. A 2-1 win there for Nuno Espirito Santo's men. And you have to say, well-deserved. Fair play, guys. Wolves were better than United in pretty much every aspect of the game today. Defensively, they were very solid. Every time United tried to press Wolves, United were almost repelling before they could even get forward because the Wolves' barrier was so strong. There were some instances, especially in the first half, when United were pushing forward and they were almost kind of regressing again. And that was, you have to credit Wolves' strong defensive line for that. Equally in attack, how strong were they in attack? I think they had, what was it, at one time they had 5 times as many shots on target as United had. So, again, how can you complain about that? Look, I could sit here for the next however long this video is going to be and complain about United and how, would I say they were poor or just outdone? Either way, I don't think it's fair to criticise United too much, and I think the focus should be on how good Wolves actually were tonight. Last week against Arsenal, I perhaps felt that their better team didn't win, but tonight, you can't help but feel that Wolves deserve to win. And I remember on Unpopular Opinions a few weeks ago, I don't know if you maybe remember too, that somebody actually suggested that Wolves could break into the top 6 in the next few years or so. I laughed it off at the time, and if I'm going to be honest, I'm still a bit sceptical. But with performances like that, they drew with Chelsea last week. They've drawn with United already in the league. They've drawn with, I think, City as well. They beat Liverpool in the FA Cup in the 3rd round, I believe it was. So time and time again, Wolves are proving themselves against the top sides. So perhaps it's not that an unrealistic thought that Wolves could break into the top 6 in the next few years or so. On to the game itself, though. Let's ignore the ball fest of the first half for a second. Second half, both of Wolves' goals were phenomenal finishes. The first goal, first of all, Raul Jimenez, absolutely fantastic the way that he managed to... he found space in such a tight angle, the way that he managed to find that space and then find the gap in the defence to aim it at the goal and to beat Sergio Romero from such a I wouldn't say tight angle, but from the defensive line in front of him, I thought was a great finish. And for a keeper of Romero's ability to be beaten from that distance and in that way, I think says more about the goal than perhaps it does Romero. Second goal, similarly, Diego Jota, who managed to hold off the defensiveness of Luke Shaw, who I thought was actually doing quite a good job in jockeying him and sort of holding him off, but he just sort of bulldozed through him, and he absolutely destroyed Romero with that goal. I think Romero was kind of kicking himself, he didn't quite get to it, but again, it was a great finish, I thought, and again, I think it's perhaps unfair to criticise Sergio Romero when the goal was so good. On to the red card that never was then. Well, at the time, I didn't think it was a red card. I was a bit sceptical. I thought it's a bit harsh. It was more of a Mike Riley-style decision, trying to get the headlines there, I thought, from the referee. I didn't think it was massively fair. And again, at this point, I think it was about 7 or 8 minutes to go. You're kind of thinking, if let's say United were to progress, they'd have had Rashford out because he'd been booked. Matic would also be out. So United's best defender, Victor Lindelof, also to be out, would have been a massive blow, no matter who United would have faced in the semi-finals. But ultimately, I think VAR prevailed. And again, VAR showing time and time again why it's so important that it's introduced into the Premier League next season. We saw it with the Champions League and the penalty decision. Today, we've seen it with the revoking of the red card, into a yellow card. So these really important match-changing decisions that, and as I said, in some cases, season-changing decisions, there we go, that are so vital and that we need to get right as much as we can. So I think VAR, brilliant. Wolves perhaps will be kicking themselves with regards to United's goal. Rashford getting on the score sheet, that's another for his tally for the season. I don't think that they can take much more from that. I wouldn't go crazy about it, but Wolves perhaps got guilty of being a bit lax in the closing stages, but ultimately, look, they got the job done and they're in the semi-finals. And what a team. I think everyone's second favourite team was Leicester in the 15-16 season. I think you'd be pressed not to say that this season it's Wolves. Your league promoted side, granted they've got all these funds at their disposal, but if you look at Fulham on the other hand, how that's worked so badly for them. So not only have Wolves spent, but Nuno Espirito Santo has managed that team so well, and they really are in a fighting position to be really pushing into that top 6 next season. And you have to feel that it might not be that far away. But yeah, I'm not that happy a bunny, obviously. Great for Wolves, not so great for United. But look, United just have to really try and push for this Champions League. It's Barcelona over 2 legs. Look, no one thought we were going to beat PSG, so the odds of beating Barcelona perhaps are slim. In my opinion, trying to fight for progress, to win the Champions League is far more than pushing for 4th place. I'd rather win a trophy than not at the end of the day. Obviously, the FA Cup's gone. In terms of Wolves, well, I think no matter who they face, they're going to be feeling absolutely full of confidence. Man City, I don't believe Man City beat them, at least in both the games that they've played, if they've played them twice. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's an hour later here in France, so I'm a little bit sleepy than I perhaps should be. But look, even if one of Millwall or Brighton ends up facing Wolves, I think Wolves will fancy their chances. So you have to really think that Wolves will be in the final in May. And look, I'd be lying if I said they didn't deserve to win a trophy this season. Obviously, League Cup's gone. They're only in the FA Cup. So I think the FA Cup would be a fantastic way to round off a remarkable return to the Premier League for Wolves. And so, look, maybe I should be more angry than I am with that result, but we got beaten by a great side. And United weren't on par. United were poor in many areas of the pitch. But when you lose to a team that's that good, then I think it's hard to complain. So that's all from me. Perhaps slightly more monotonous than I would have liked. But look, it's only so animated I can be after a loss. Please tune in tomorrow for Unpopular Opinions, where Tom and I actually are discussing VAR. And I don't know if we're going to have an episode of Topical Team Sheets on Monday. Maybe we'll rerun last week's instead. Either way, though, thanks for watching, and I will catch you later.